So this is a story about a painter who created a beautiful painting of Jesus knocking at the door. He asked a friend, who was also a great painter, to look at the painting and tell him what he thought. The friend looked at the painting for a while, and he said, the colors and the lines were really good, and it was very pretty. The hue was great. There was only one thing missing, the doorknob on the door. The painter said he deliberately left the doorknob off, since the door represented the human heart. Jesus was knocking at it, and it could only be opened from the inside. Jesus is knocking, but waits for us through faith to open that door. The very first verse of today's gospel reading tells us exactly why the gospel is good news. Jesus calls us his little flock because he knows how powerless we sometimes feel in a world where violence is so prevalent. But we are also told not to fear, because our Heavenly Father wants to give us his kingdom. This is the reason we rely on love and generosity rather than control and violence. That we are eligible for the most precious gift of all, his kingdom. That is ultimate freedom and happiness. To rely on the way of love and kindness, which often appears so unpromising, we build treasure in heaven. The danger that this way of living could often look like pie in the sky, unreality. It might not happen. It's the future. It's through faith. And that is why the rest of this gospel reading focuses on the need for vigilance. The moment we are distracted from the wisdom of Jesus, we begin to slip back into the ways of the world. That is, we begin to forget what human life is all about. To be vigilant means to keep Jesus and his teachings constantly before us. We recall that in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus returned to his disciples and found them sleeping, he warned them to watch and pray. He could just have easily said, watch, that is, pray. What is only our prayerful remembrance of God's presence among us and of the promise of the kingdom that will protect us from the distractions that lead us to live by the world's standards and be found unprepared when the Lord comes for us. We live in a world where the pace of life is far quicker than it was in Jesus' time. Our planes and our automobiles and our computers and our cell phones go faster and faster and are always in a hurry. Even our medications must work much more quickly today. We're very impatient. Sometimes we seem to be in a whirlwind, and it's almost impossible to keep our bearings. All of this makes it much more difficult to live in the kind of peaceful world where the voice of God can be heard. It's impossible to find such a serene existence without a conscience and deliberate effort on our part. We must take the time and pray. Be alert to the reality and presence of God in our personal world. It means learning how to pray to take time. The most important element in prayer is being attentive and listening to the Lord. Like Elijah on Mount Horeb, we're surrounded by thunder, lightning, earthquake, but it is the light sound of God that we need to hear. God is constantly whispering to us that we are His little flock, that we are precious in His eyes, and that He wants very much to give us the freedom and the joy of His kingdom. But too often, we're not listening. We're bombarded by sounds and sights that distract us, confuse us, frighten us. The only remedy is to attune our ears to the divine sounds of love and harmony and peace. We recall the words of the book of Revelation. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will enter his house and dine with him, and he with me. But we need to be quiet if we want to hear the Lord knocking at the door of our hearts. We all know how frustrating and distressing it is to be talking to someone and saying something, only to realize no one's listening. At those times, we realize that attentive listening is one of the most precious gifts that we can give to someone else. Just take the time and listen. It's also a precious gift to God when we offer Him our attention. So this week, listen. God speaks to us through the world, through other people, through our prayers, through quiet times. God is always there knocking at the door of our hearts. But we must open our hearts to let Him in. But He's always waiting. So take time to listen.